So there are plenty of companies out there trying to convince you that NFTs are the next big thing in gaming, revolutionary for the kinds of gameplay experiences they'll pave the road for. But so far, companies, executives, and NFT supporters have yet to offer a valuable justification and explanation for how us, the players, will benefit from NFTs. So far, all of their implementation and ideas have been to give companies an extra source of revenue, an additional means to monetize players and nickel and dime them. So the trust surrounding NFTs, especially given companies' history of exploiting new monetization avenues like how they did with microtransactions and loot boxes, that level of distrust has paved the road to immense backlash against any company that dares to try to sell NFTs. That's why we saw so much backlash against Stalker 2's attempted implementation of NFTs, which they were eventually forced to pull back on. Ubisoft has been facing all kinds of backlash with Quartz, with mass dislikes ratio here leading to the unlisting of the trailer for Ubisoft Quartz. Developers are pushing back, with Ubisoft developers expressing that they don't understand how NFTs will benefit gaming and fearing that the mandate surrounding NFTs might compromise the game development process with less creative freedom to focus on the fun factor of the game. Ubisoft continues to insist that this is the future. The CEO, Yves Guillemot, insisted that NFTs are just the beginning and is trying to convince developers within the company that NFTs are a benefit for gaming, and they've come out and done interviews with outlets like Decrypt and insisted that they'll stay true to their principles and use the tech responsibly, build a safe environment, offer meaningful value propositions for players that benefit their gaming experience. But history has shown time and again that this is what companies tend to say but never tend to deliver on. And at the end of the day, it always becomes about maximizing profit above all else, above the gaming experience, above the financial and psychological health of players. You name it. There's just so much BS that's being spouted about NFTs implementations into gaming that it's really nice to hear prominent figures in the gaming industry speaking out against NFTs, expressing concerns that players have expressed, and admitting that so far NFTs have felt like nothing more than a scam and an additional form of player exploitation. And chief among them is none other than Josef Fares, who's come a long way. I mean, in 2017, he was at the Game Awards flipping off the Oscars, made a whole lot of headlines that way. But this is a guy who, through action, has shown that he's a force to be reckoned with as a game developer, winning Game of the Year at the Game Awards 2021 for It Takes Two, taking this trophy home once again, calling out the Oscars at the same time, and showing everyone that through hard work and dedication you can make awesome games and accomplish dreams like winning the frickin' Game of the Year at one of the biggest gaming events out there. But beyond his gaming endeavors and the amount of support that he's received because of his consumer-friendly practices, and because this is someone who genuinely seems focused on the artistry of gaming and the fun factor of gaming above all else, he's come out and spoken out against both live service game formats as well as NFTs, and stuff like this is going to only inspire people to continue speaking out against shady practices. And beyond Josef Fares, I'll get to what Phil Spencer said a month ago, and more prominent figures speaking out against NFTs and speaking out alongside players and communities who are against this stuff means there's the potential to stop NFTs before they become too big of a trend, make them too much of a PR liability for companies to immediately jump on this bandwagon, make them think twice about considering implementing NFTs. But yeah, looking at this Washington Post article who interviewed Josef Fares, here's what Josef had to say about live service specifically. Live service? We'll never have that, referring to Hazelight and their gaming endeavors. People can work with that, and I'm not saying replayability is bad for every game. Some games are actually designed for it. I'm just saying for the games we do, story-based, most single-player games, the focus on replayability shouldn't be there because that's not what it's about. We already have a problem that people are not even finishing single-player experience games, so why focus on replayability. Basically, he just wants to deliver on one memorable experience that has a beginning, middle, and end. And that's exactly what It Takes Two offered. It didn't take that long to complete, and once you do one playthrough, you've probably seen enough of the game that, it doesn't necessitate that you replay it and, stick with it for hundreds of hours. It was a concise experience, but, sometimes it's good to just leave on a high and let that experience end that way. For my part, I always hated when a game or a show is ruined by the overextension of how long it lasts. A TV show that should have ended at season 5 going to 10 seasons and kind of ruining and tarnishing your memory of it because it clearly feels like it's padded out, or games that extend the grind so that it can be played for hundreds or thousands of hours, but unfulfilling, hundreds or thousands of hours. Like, that kind of stuff just really irks me and diminishes my memory of a game, because when you've got these highs that then kind of become whimpers because of overextended experiences, that's when you kind of lose the plot. And so with It Takes Two, it was exactly the right length that it needed to be, and it ended, and that's okay. I'm tired of this trend that everything has to be an unlimited gaming experience. I love it when things conclude, because everything good eventually ends. And then Josef gives his take on NFTs. He said straight up he'd rather get shot in the knee than include them in future games, which is a very Josef Ferris response, but this is a clear admonishment against NFTs and the trends that are being proposed by gaming companies whose intentions are clearly to exploit NFTs, not to actually use the technology in clever ways that would genuinely improve games and turn games into investments and jobs that you have to learn economics to know how to invest and, play to earn, and all these terms that make games about making money instead of just escaping the real world and immersing yourself in experience that's all about just fun and about stories and empathizing with characters and the things that people fall in love with gaming for. And then he continued, let me tell you this, whatever decision you take in a game where you have to adjust the design to make the player pay or do something that makes you want him to pay money, that is wrong. And that's precisely what players and developers fear, that NFTs will become such a focus that game design will be compromised so that they're designed to push players and lure players into buying NFTs in the same way that microtransactions and loot boxes have done that. Games designed to extend the grind, so you have to purchase XP boosters to mitigate the insufferable amount of effort to unlock an item or unlock a specific thing or to progress just through gameplay, intentionally introducing an insufferable problem that you have to pay in order to solve. And with loot boxes, obviously, it's all about the dopamine release and getting players hooked to that sense of anticipation, to frustrate players who only pursue progression through gameplay so that they'll eventually throw their hands up and through their impatience just decide to say, screw it, I'm just going to spend money on the microtransactions and loot boxes, locking desirable things, whether it's a cool cosmetic or a pay-to-win element behind a system that is essentially gambling and can dangerously get players hooked in a way that's psychologically and financially harmful. That's what Josef is referring to here, and the possibility of NFTs essentially serving as an extra layer to that. I mean, just think about how Ubisoft has already implemented NFTs through Ghost Recon Breakpoint, where you have this helmet, for example, that you need 600 plus hours of gameplay in Ghost Recon Breakpoint to claim. And the scheme here is essentially the promise of fortune and riches through the claiming of this NFT and through the buying, selling, and trading of NFTs. But to partake in this helmet, for example, you need to put all these hours into a game that throughout those hours will consistently encourage you to visit the microtransaction store to buy items to accelerate aspects of unlocking certain things, because doing so through pure gameplay is just that much more insufferable and that much more of a grind. So the NFTs and the fact that it forces you to play the game for so long directly ties into the microtransactions monetization. So stuff like that is the focus of NFTs right now, and the game design is going to be influenced by that kind of pursuit or again, it's going to be about maximizing monetization and not fun, and in turn, intentionally making the game less fun, so people have to pay to make it more fun. Now, Josef continues, but this next sentence, I don't know if this is a typo or a misinterpretation of what he said, because this doesn't make sense. If you make a game with the goal of telling a story, I think it's wrong. I think games made to tell a story, that's a good thing. I don't know if he meant to say that games whose goal isn't to tell a story, but rather to monetize and exploit and overextend the experience on purpose for monetization purposes. That's wrong. I don't know if that's what he meant. Like, I don't know. This sentence is confusing because it contradicts his other stances and, you know, his own games, which are telling a story on top of offering great gameplay experiences. Now, if you ask a big CEO that runs a company, he would say I'm stupid because companies are about making money, but I would say no. For me, gaming is art, and that's what is often forgotten by executives who don't care about the artistry of game making. For them, the interactive nature of gaming is just a vehicle for profits with the players as the cattle. Frankly, we don't want game developers to think like CEOs. Yeah, this is how CEOs think. It's all about making money. But to me, that's a stupid mindset of its own, because sometimes you lose sight of, you know, long-term elements like goodwill when all you're focused on is meeting the quotas every quarter and the short-term monetization and pleasing investors. That compromises games to a point where it's going to have long-term detrimental effects. Whereas if you focus on the idea of gaming as an art form and just strive to make the best game possible, you know, the merits of the game will speak for itself. That is going to lead to great sales with a lot of goodwill that paves the road for long-term great future sales. Not to say that gaming isn't a business. I mean, it is. You do need to have some business-minded aspects to, you know, help promote a game and, you know, budget and all these things. Like, that stuff matters in making a profit and whatnot. But when you lose sight of the artistry, which is what tends to happen when you go too far into the other end of the spectrum, the business-minded spectrum, instead of finding a good balance in the middle, when you don't meet that balance, you know, you get really crappy products that are rushed out, that don't seem to care, experiences that don't understand what players want out of specific genres of games, you know, poor design choices or decisions intentionally made to make the game more flawed so that the microtransactions can be the solution for them. CEOs coming up with schemes to maximize profit, that's not being smart, that's just being scummy. It's being quote-unquote smart for the wrong reasons, like how if someone pulls off a successful bank heist, I guess they were obviously on some level smart, but in a really scummy way. It is an evil kind of smart, whereas artists and people who genuinely care about the integrity of their games and the projects that they're working on, they have both morality involved alongside with the intelligence to understand that you just need to ship a good game for players to spread the word of mouth and the positive feedback that could pave the road to long-term commercial success that maybe isn't maximizing profits to a degree that would require to be scummy to do so, but makes enough money and still enjoy success and enjoy celebration from the community and everyone gets to win. Like, that's the kind of long-term future you want to pave the road for. And artists who are genuinely passionate and who aren't beholden to CEOs who are short-sighted in their scummy mindset to maximize profit and sacrifice everything to that end are the ones who are truly being smart, in my opinion. The good, morally correct kind of smart, not the evil, schemy kind of smart. So yeah, just mad props to Josef for speaking out and saying something, given that he now, you know, won a Game of the Year award, and given the headlines that he made as someone who, you know, flipped off the Oscars live at one of the biggest gaming events. It's going to have an impact on stigmatizing NFTs even further and making companies have to really think twice about implementing NFTs in their games, knowing that there is backlash that will come their way if they make that decision, them having to weigh whether that amount of backlash is worth the potential, you know, revenue and profits and business scheme advantages that NFTs could pave the road for. It just makes it less of a clear-cut choice for greedy businesses, and that's a good thing. Now, beyond Josef Fares, Phil Spencer, who, you know, is even more influential given that he's not just, you know, the head of an indie development studio. He is the head of Xbox. When someone like that speaks out against NFTs and how they currently feel, according to Axios' headline, exploitative, and with the mass celebration of Phil Spencer's statement against NFTs, it's just gonna further stigmatize NFTs and further make companies have to, again, kind of struggle with whether NFTs are worth implementing, whether that amount of backlash is worth going through. Here's a direct quote as relayed by Phil Spencer to news outlet Axios. What I'd say today on NFT All Up is I think there's a lot of speculation, experimentation that's happening, and that some of the creative that I see today feels more exploitative than about entertainment, which is 100% correct. Again, I'm all for new technologies that pave the road to better gaming experiences, and I'm willing to keep an open mind if you can present a solid, valid, and detailed argument as to how NFTs will be beneficial. But so far, it's been nothing but buzzwords and vagueness and promises of a brighter future without the specifics to back it up, which suggests that companies don't actually have any sort of justification or explanation. They're just kind of scrambling for reasons and buzzwords to get people to buy into it. But people are noticing. All NFTs have done so far for gaming is introduce this play-to-earn scheme. So it's obvious that the kind of research that's going into NFTs isn't about, man, how do we use this to make games better? It's, man, how do we use this to make investors happy? How do we get those numbers up further by exploiting NFTs? Phil Spencer's statement concluded with, I don't think it necessitates that every NFT game is exploitative. I just think we're kind of in that journey of people figuring it out. And I can understand that early on you see a lot of things that probably are not things you want to have in your store. I think anything that we looked at in our storefront that we said is exploitative would be something that we would, take action on. We don't want that kind of content. And obviously I'm going to hold Phil Spencer to that. If there comes a point where Microsoft starts delving into NFTs in ways that, say, Ubisoft is, then I'm going to call this out and I'm going to spotlight the hypocrisy and the deceit involved here. But Phil Spencer usually tends to have really good takes. He is someone who brought Xbox back from the brink when Don Matrick just completely butchered Xbox One's launch. And generally so far, through both his actions and his words, Phil Spencer so far does seem to be a significantly more consumer-friendly executive and head of, a gaming company or gaming division than other executives have been. And someone like that speaking out and saying all the right things about NFTs and the way they've been implemented right now in shady ways, in ways that feel, again, more exploitative, that is bound to win both Phil Spencer and Xbox further goodwill, and that's bound to only, again, further stigmatize NFTs and make them a riskier prospect for game companies to pursue. Just giving NFTs further negative perception and stopping this trend before it has a chance to kick off like microtransactions and loot boxes did. That's a huge positive as far as I'm concerned, especially after how they promised microtransactions and loot boxes would be implemented responsibly and used to benefit players. But in the past couple of years, that's proven to be completely false. Those promises have fallen through the cracks, and it's become all about exploiting. And there's just no way in hell people at this stage are going to trust that NFTs won't be used and exploited in a similar way. These companies have a track record. These CEOs have a specific mindset and are a special kind of scumbags. So down with NFTs, I say, and kudos to influential figures like Josef and Phil Spencer for speaking out and actually giving us, good takes about the current state of NFTs instead of buzzwords and BS that are so easy to see through as deceits and as just propaganda almost to try to normalize NFTs enough that they can be greedily exploited. Or at least that's one man's take. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on Josef and Phil Spencer's statements against NFTs. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.